Lev Nikolayevich Gumilyov, a Soviet historian, ethnologist, anthropologist and translator from Persian, had a reputation for his highly non-orthodox theories of ethnogenesis. Life. His parents were two prominent poets, Nikolai Gumilyov and Anna Akhmatova. They were divorced when Lev was 7 years old, and his father was executed when Lev was just 9. Lev spent most of his youth, from 1938 until 1956, in Soviet labor camps. He was arrested by NKVD in 1935 and released, but re-arrested again and convicted to 5 years in 1938. After serving the time, he joined the Red Army and took part in the Battle of Berlin. However, he was arrested again in 1949 and convicted to 10 years in prison camps. In order to secure his release, Akhmatova published a dithyramb to Joseph Stalin, which did not help to release Lev, although it possibly prevented her own imprisonment. The order for her arrest had already been prepared by Soviet secret police, but Stalin decided not to sign it. Relations between Lev and his mother were strained, as he blamed her for not helping him enough. She described her feelings about the arrest of Lev and a period of political repressions in Requiem. After Stalin's death, Gumilyov joined the Hermitage Museum, whose director, Mikhail Artemonov, he would come to appreciate as his mentor. Under Artemonov's guidance, he became interested in Kazakh studies and steppe peoples in general. In the 1950s and 1960s, he participated in several expeditions to the Volga Delta and North Caucasus. He proposed an archaeological site for Samandar as well as the theory of the Caspian transgression in collaboration with geologist Alexander Alyoksin, as one of the reasons for Kazakh decline. In 1960, he started delivering lectures at Leningrad University. 2 years later, he defended his doctoral thesis on ancient Turks. For the 1960s, he worked in the Geography Institute, where he would defend another doctoral thesis, this time in geography. Although his ideas were rejected by the official Soviet doctrine and most of his monographs banned from publication, Gumilyov came to attract much publicity, especially in the perestroika years. As an indication of his popularity, the Kazakh president Nursultan Nazarbayev ordered the L.N. Gumilyov Eurasian National University to be erected just opposite his own palace on the central square of the new Kazakh capital, Astana. Ideas. Gumilyov attempted to explain the waves of nomadic migration that rocked the great steppe of Eurasia for centuries by geographical factors such as annual vacillations in solar radiation, which determine the area of grasslands that could be used for grazing livestock. According to this idea, when the steppe areas shrank drastically, the nomads of Central Asia began moving to the fertile pastures of Europe or China. To describe the genesis and evolution of ethnic groups, Gumilyov introduced the concept of passionarity, meaning the level of activity to expand typical for an ethnic group, and especially for the leaders, at the given moment of time. Gumilyov argued that every ethnic group passes through the same stages of birth, development, climax, inertia, convolution, and memorial. It is during the acmatic phases, when the national passionarity reaches its maximum heat, that the great conquests are made. He described the current state of Europe as deep inertia, or introduction to obscuration, to use his own words. The passionarity of the Arabic world, on the other hand, is still high, according to him. Drawing inspiration from the works of Konstantin Leontiev and Nikolai Danilevsky, Gumilyov regarded Russians as a superethnos, which is kindred to Turkic-Mongol peoples of the Eurasian steppe, those periods when Russia has been said to conflict with the steppe peoples. Gumilyov reinterpreted as the periods of consolidation of Russian power with that of steppe in order to oppose destructive influences from Catholic Europe that posed a potential threat to integrity of the Russian ethnic group. In accordance with his pan-Asiatic theories, he supported the national movements of Tatars, Kazakhs, and other Turkic peoples, in addition to those of the Mongolians and other East Asians. Unsurprisingly, Gumilyov's teachings have enjoyed immense popularity in Central Asian countries. In Kazan, for example, a monument to him was opened in August 2005. Several researchers, such as Vadim Rossman, John Clear, Victor Yasmin, Viktor Shnarelmin, and Mikhail Tripolsky describe Gumilyov's views as anti-Semitic. According to these authors, Gumilyov did not extend this ethnological ecumenism to the medieval Jews, whom he regarded as a parasitic, international urban class that had dominated the Khazars and subjected the early East Slavs to the Khazar yoke. This last phrase he adapted from the traditional term Tatar yoke for the Mongol domination of medieval Russia, a term Gumilyov rejected, for he did not regard the Mongol conquest as a necessarily negative event. In particular, he asserted that the Radhanites had been instrumental in the exploitation of East Slavic people and had exerted undue influence on the socio-political and economic landscape of the early Middle Ages. Gumilyov maintained that the Jewish culture was by nature mercantile and existed outside and in opposition to its environment. According to this view, Jews share a specific way of thinking, and this is associated with the moral norms of Judaism. According to Gumilyov, the medieval Jews also did not bear arms themselves but waged wars by proxies or mercenaries. Criticism. Gumilyov explains the genesis of new nations by eruptions of biosphere. But how these natural calamities are to be confirmed? It appears by the same history. We know nothing about the work of biosphere on the production of ethnoses, except that it produces them. A new ethnos appeared somewhere on Earth. It means the biosphere erupted. Fun aside, the criterion of Gumilyov has taken him beyond the scope of science. Quote, "The last eruption of biosphere was in 1381 and generated the Russian ethnos." Generally, according to Gumilyov, the biosphere after the 14th century began behaving in some strange manner. From his table, it is evident that the biosphere had never stood still for so long, 6 centuries without a single eruption of ethnogenesis. Either something serious went wrong in the biosphere, if it failed during 6 centuries to generate any superethnos, or Gumilyov artificially blocked it out of patriotic considerations. Works. The Xiongnu. Ancient Turks. Searching for an imaginary kingdom. The legend of the kingdom of Prester John. The Xiongnu in China. Ethnogenesis and a biosphere of Earth. Ancient Rus and the Great Steppe. An end and a new beginning. From Rus to Russia.